Hi, this is basically everything I learned in AP What Is Modern about Europe, Period 2. Expansion. European kingdoms kept fighting due to their proximity to each other. So in order to outdo each other, they kept getting better and deadlier weapons. Most European expansion during this period was done overseas, such as the Americas. Marriage alliances were where royals married off their children to become allied with another kingdom. This happened enough that inbreeding started happening because they were all related to each other. Certain kingdoms got resources from their colonies, and then they used those resources to get a bureaucracy. The Church, in this instance, refers to the Roman Catholic Church, led by the Pope. They lost power due to the king's rising power. The Code of Chivalry says to follow the king's rules. Louis XIV built a big palace called Versailles that had apartments that each of the nobles had to live in, allowing Louis to surveil and control them better. The French king got to choose the French bishops because they made an agreement with the Roman Catholic Church where they gave the Pope and the Church money. An assembly in politics is a representative body. The kings kept them from having power by having them never meet so they couldn't do anything. The three governmental functions were making laws, enforcing laws, and punishing lawbreakers. A monarch was all three. Administration. The divine right of kings, or the notions of divine right, were that God chose the king, and since God doesn't make mistakes, the king won't, helping legitimize their rule. Palaces that the nobles lived in were located outside of big cities, setting them apart and above from the commoners. The king took money for themselves instead of investing them back into the state, and also they directly taxed people to cut out the middleman's power. The monarchs sponsored arts. States got new crops from the Americas, such as potatoes. Belief systems. Western Europe practiced Roman Catholicism, which eventually split into Roman Catholicism and the Protestant religions after the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation was started by Martin Luther, an ethnic German priest, although Germany was still called the Holy Roman Empire at this point. They started it because they did not like some of the church's practices, such as indulgences, which were pieces of paper the church gave out to people who paid them. The indulgences helped their souls get into heaven and out of purgatory faster. Martin Luther believed that only faith could save them, so they wrote the 95 Theses, which were 95 reasons the church was bad. The 95 Theses were printed using the printing presses and were sent out and translated across Europe. The Catholic Church did not like this, so the Diet of Worms gathered, or the group from the city Worms. They told Martin Luther to stop. Martin Luther did not listen to them, so they excommunicated them, which means that the church does not allow them to practice their faith anymore. The Holy Roman Empire was composed of principalities, led by princes. The prince was the person to choose which religion they practiced, but not the people living in the principalities. Lutheran was one of the Protestant categories. King Henry VIII invented the Anglican Church in order to get divorced. The Catholic Reformation was located in the city of Trent by the Council of Trent. They figured out how to respond to Protestants and if they should change. They decided to train their priests better and to help the priests practice Catholicism better. However, they thought that the rest was still good and didn't change much. Some missionaries, such as the Society of Jesus, were sent to convert people to Roman Catholicism. They went to Europe and the colonies, as well as China and Japan. Political religious disputes. The 30 Years' War was between Bourbon and the Habsburg. It resulted from a conflict between the Protestants and the Catholic League in the Holy Roman Empire. Sweden and France, who were Catholics, sided with the Protestant Bourbons, despite the Habsburgs being Catholics. This was because they did not want the Habsburgs to take over. The peace treaty that ended the 30 Years' War was called the Peace of Westphalia. It established the idea that European countries should be balanced so there would be no more war. This failed.